Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, AirspeedPrime here with my next channel update. This one's going to be for, I suppose, July 2018. And yeah, a couple of things to talk about here. Mainly just kind of going over like videos you'll see over like to kind of cover San Diego Comic-Con, why you potentially haven't seen videos on certain things on the channel just yet. But the first thing I want to bring up is Attack on Titan Season 3. The anime is... the first episode has just come out. I really want to know, do you guys actually want me to review that series on my channel? I reviewed Season 2 and I looked back at it, and view-wise, comments-wise, that sort of thing, it didn't do particularly well on my channel. Not that like I got tons of dislikes or anything like that. It just felt like it was a series I kind of put a decent amount of effort into, but not many people actually watched. So I didn't get the impression that it's something that people wanted to necessarily continue on my channel. And I don't want to just stick with doing it when it's basically not really getting all that many views. So definitely in the comments, let me know, do you want me to continue reviewing Attack on Titan or not? Because the numbers are kind of leading me to believe that, like, no, it's not necessarily something I do. It doesn't really seem like the best use of my time. But if there is a lot of people out there who want me to do it, I will start to review it. But right now I am leaning towards not doing it, just because the numbers kind of don't really seem to suggest people want it. So that's that. The second thing, San Diego Comic-Con is coming up next weekend. So the thing with this is that there's no Avatar, there's no core like official content coming out. So that means there won't be, I suspect there really won't be anything Avatar-wise to talk about from the panel. I suppose there's the potential for them to announce the Avatar Pop Finals, but I don't really know if they'll do that or not. So that means I'll be focusing on some other things there. The main thing will be Voltron. They're having a panel and they're showing the first episode of Season 7. Now, that's to the people there. I don't think they'll broadcast that to everyone, so we'll still have to wait to watch the first episode. But I suspect that along with that, they will show a Season 7 trailer and probably announce the release date for Season 7. Now, if we get the trailer, I will be doing like a review, an analysis video on the trailer, and probably an updated speculation video as well on what I think will happen in Season 7 now that we would potentially have some kind of evidence to go on. Otherwise, like, if they just announce the date for Season 7 or there's no real news, maybe you won't see a video, but the plan is to at least do some sort of coverage on the Voltron Season 7 panel. The other San Diego Comic-Con thing would be the Dragon Prince. This is Wonderstorm's upcoming Netflix show, which is, I suppose, mainly notable because Aaron Has, the head writer of Avatar The Last Airbender, is going to be one of the main people involved in this. I've had a few people already ask me to talk about this, just with the basic announcement that we've got so far. The reason I haven't done one already is because so far there's been so little information on it. We have like one image, we just know some of the people involved, and the basic description of like 2 human princes and 1 elf character, and that's it. Like, for me, like, the reason I haven't talked about it is just because there's nothing to talk about. And while I think just because of the fact that, you know, some of the Avatar people are involved, it gives me some interest in it. Like with Voltron initially, just because I'm a fan of Avatar and there's Avatar people involved in this doesn't mean that I'm, like, default a fan of this show. I'm going to wait and see what this show actually is before I make that decision, and that's why I'm waiting to do a video on this before... I'm waiting to actually see some content about this show before I do a video on it. And then I'll make a decision about if I'm going to review the show when it comes out in September. So it's just basically to make it clear that, like, just because Aaron Has is involved doesn't mean that I'm default going to watch it and all that sort of stuff. Part of that is because I think the people who really kind of like go crazy about, like, oh, it's Aaron Has, the true reason Avatar is the way it is, and the true main writer for the show, it just gets a bit frustrating at times, because it seems like whenever these people talk about it, it's always like Aaron Has the best, Mike and Brian are terrible, that Avatar is only as good as it is because of him. and Korra would have been better if he was involved. And it's just like, that's some great like hot takes on the subject, but like when you really look at it, like, okay, he came up with some very good ideas for the show that are like important aspects of the show, but what about the rest of the show? Like Mike and Brian were pretty heavily involved in what the show is, and in terms of them as writers, like I always look at book 1 of Korra, and like there's a book where they are like the only 2 credited writers on all of Korra book 1. And book 1 of Korra is one of the more solid books of Korra when you really look at it, and I definitely would give them praise as writers for doing that. And to me, it always has felt that when they brought the more writers in across book 2, 3, and 4, that's when more of the kind of issues came in, where they actually had other writers as well. So, I'm not really one of these people who like hyper bigs up Aaron has, not to in any way put him down. I absolutely am aware of the impact he had on the show, but I'm not going to like hyper praise it when like we don't really know what this show is just yet. So I will do at least some coverage on it when it comes out, the info from SDCC, but it is not a default thing that I'm going to be reviewing this show. I hope it's good, and based on like what they've said about Wonderstorm as like a company so far, what the idea is for the media that they're going to put out, I do get the impression this is going to be the style of show that I like, in terms of being character focused, plot focused, and all the episodes link into each other and there's depth to it. And the fact that they're planning to do like multimedia stuff by like having like the video game link in with it. I think they have plans for like books and comics. I don't really know the full details. I hope they go into that in the panel, but you know, I have some positive stuff like that. Like, okay, it looks good in terms of the approach, but just knowing no details about what the show actually is kind of like, yeah, I can't really say much about it just now. So that's that. With regards to Avatar stuff on the channel, like it's always going to remain the focus of this channel. Like whenever news comes out, that will take priority over basically any other video covering the Avatar news. And I'll do the discussion videos now that the rewatch is over. They'll come back to pretty much being weekly as best as I can do it. We should be expecting like Turf Wars preview pages in the coming weeks. Probably Imbalance preview pages not too far after. Turf Wars Part 3 is itself only a month away, so you know, the usual stuff when a book comes out, I will cover it in a lot of detail, and you'll get all that content. It's been a long time since we've had any of that content, and so it's been a tough wait to actually get there. And then yeah, the discussion topic, I did the Asami one this week. The plan is to do the Red Lotus members for the video next week in the same style of kind of, you know, how to improve underdeveloped characters and doing some suggestions on their backstories and so on. And then the last thing I'll say with regards to Avatar content is that if there's a specific topic that you want me to cover in the Avatar discussion topic series, Patreon is the most obvious way to make a specific topic happen. There's a couple of the tiers I think I have it where that if you go in at that tier, you can choose any topic for me to cover in the Avatar discussion topic series, because of course, like, I'm not going to be able to like read minds here. There are some topics I'm probably never just going to get to by thinking myself, so you suggesting it that way might be the only way that I actually get around to actually doing it. So that's there for you to like obviously help support the channel so I can make more videos and better videos. And of course, if there's something a bit more specific that you maybe don't think I'll cover, the Patreon is the way to absolutely make sure that a specific video happens. So my Patreon will be linked in the description below, like it is in every video. But there's that. And I think also I have it set up there where like if you don't want an Avatar topic, by being a patron at a certain tier, you can instead choose a TV show for me to watch the first few episodes of and then review it, just to kind of, if you want my thoughts on a specific show that I might not cover as well. So that's the way to make other sort of content happen on my channel. Just again, bringing up the Patreon that I have. What else? obviously I'll continue to review Boruto, the episodes as they come out. That's going to be like a pretty regular slot of like the Thursday video most of the time. Sword Art Online, I think in the coming weeks and months is obviously going to be a much bigger thing on the channel, because the Alicization Season 3 arc is going to be coming out in October, and that is a series I want to cover pretty heavily. I already put out a trailer analysis that I put a lot of effort into earlier on this week, and obviously I'll be reviewing those episodes. I'll be reviewing the different light novels as they're released, and so on. So, you know, a lot of Sword Art Online content you'll see in the coming, you know, couple of months as we approach the release of Alicization. And then I suppose the only other thing to really talk about is I suppose like Star Wars content. Why haven't you seen a lot of Star Wars content since that solo review I did when it first came out? Well, I suppose the main reason is just that a lot of the content that has been coming out hasn't particularly interested me. Like, talking about the sequel trilogy at this point doesn't really appeal to me all that much, because obviously I have my issues with The Last Jedi. I'm not the biggest fan of that movie at all. And then the sequel trilogy overall, there's only a couple of things that I'm actually like interested in. Basically, Rey and Kylo Ren are like the only real reasons that I'm actually like still kind of invested to a degree in the sequel trilogy, just to see where they leave those characters off. So I'm almost in a way waiting to see, like, let's just get through episode 9 and see where we can go with Star Wars when they kind of start again with this kind of new generation. I liked Solo. I still maintain that I think Solo was a very, very good movie, and I'm a bit surprised that it hasn't done as well as expected at the box office. I think it's maybe been a bit of an over-exaggeration to say it's been like a failure, but hasn't done as well as expected for a Star Wars movie, considering that like Rogue One actually did really well and it didn't really even match that as such. But I think Disney made a pretty bad mistake by then deciding to cancel all these, like, cancel or put on hold all these other movies. At least that's what the rumor is. Stuff like the Obi-Wan film, like a potential like Boba Fett film. I sort of agree that the Boba Fett movie isn't the most amazing idea, because he's not too much of a character, in that if you actually have to go into character stuff with him, you have to address the stuff from the prequels more so than anything, and he's not necessarily that original trilogy character that you really expect him to be, because I think most of the interesting aspect of the fact that it comes from the fact that he is like Jango Fett's son more so than anything. So I don't really know where the depth really comes there. But the Obi-Wan Kenobi film just feels like Disney, are you stupid? Like, why would you cancel this movie when like that is the way to bring people back? That's your next like successful film. Like, a huge part of why I've had like problems with the sequel trilogy and like a lot of the new stuff coming out is just the sense of like everything is like not involving Jedi, like that The Last Jedi, and the fact that the sequel trilogy is all about the fact that, oh, like we're in this new era like post episode 6, but Luke's new Jedi Order has like been and gone and we didn't get to see any of it. And now there's, once again, only a couple of Force users left, and it's like Rey and Kylo Ren at this point. Like, what's the obsession with not ever having a lot of Force users? That's what was so unique about the prequels, and it's been a bit disappointing to see them like move so far away from the prequel type stuff. And I think the prequel stuff is sort of becoming a little bit more nostalgic. People are beginning to appreciate it a lot more, especially in light of the fact that Episode 8 has pretty much become like the much more controversial movie, whereas like, okay, the prequel trilogies are always going to be criticized because maybe the acting quality at times wasn't the best, but the core of the story is actually like really, really interesting, like the lore and all that stuff. Whereas I think it's like the opposite for like Episode 8, where it's like the core of the story is where the problem is, and the acting is actually good. So it's you can see sort of where the problem is, like that people like have huge issues with where they've taken things here, whereas it's more of just like, in a way, like nitpicky stuff with the prequel trilogy, but it's like actually pretty okay. So that's a lot of where I'm at with Star Wars. It's just like I'm interested in the new Thrawn book that's coming out in a couple of weeks. I don't know if I'll review it or not. I suppose it depends on how good it is once I read it. The new show coming out, Star Wars Resistance, I think it's called, is absolutely not what I wanted from the next series of just like, hey, let's move even further away from having like Force user characters involved and let's just have it be like pilots, like generic Resistance stuff, when like my biggest problem with like Star Wars Rebels was realistically that it got overly focused and lost in the minutiae of just here is the formation of the Rebel Alliance, when the interesting stuff really came in with where Ezra's going, where Kanan's going, Ahsoka when she came back into play, those type of things, and it just feels like they're missing the mark with whatever they're kind of aiming at, and I want them to return to having some stuff that's set in like the prequel trilogy, or go even further back and have it be like Origin of the Jedi, Origin of the Sith, and cover like Darth Bane, cover the Sith when they had like an army of kind of people. That's the sort of development that I want to see, like actually see them properly canonize like what the rule of two is. That we know that that's a thing that the Jedi are aware of, but if you don't read the books, you don't properly understand like the significance of the rule of two. So I'd like them to actually make that a story into reality. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's just like so much of the stuff isn't amazingly appealing to me, and I'm just waiting to see if any of these projects that they kind of have that they're working on, like new trilogy of movie, a bunch of new TV shows they're working on, if any of them are going to tell the sort of stories that I want to be told in Star Wars. So with Star Wars on my channel, like it's all about like what the new content that comes out actually is. I don't have too much of an interest in just covering everything Star Wars that comes out. I'm waiting to see the interesting Star Wars stuff that comes out. But yeah, other than that, like I'll review Steven Universe episodes as they come out. The kind of usual stuff that I do cover on my channel will continue to be covered. But I suppose as we go forward, I probably will have to look into potentially doing more stuff with Patreon to just kind of see if that kind of improves kind of like how my channel can be run and so on. Will I have to look into doing like exclusive Patreon videos or something like that covering other topics? I'm not particularly sure. I suppose it depends how the next couple of months really go, but yeah, that's more or less where the channel is at. It's just a lot of waiting, I suppose, primarily for new Avatar content to come out so I can actually get into the stuff that, like, I suppose I started the channel to cover, and then, focusing on Voltron a little bit more because that stuff actually does very well on my channel and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's pretty much the update video. So as I said, check out my Patreon if you want to suggest video ideas and topics to me. Yeah, other than that, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.